U Strasbourgu, u sjedištu Europskog parlamenta, razgovaramo sa zastupnikom njemačkih, Danielom Freundom, o situaciji u njegovoj zemlji, ali i u Europi u cjelini danas u vrlo kompliciranim geopolitičkim okolnostima. Mr. Freund, thank you very much for your time. How would you describe the situation in Germany right now, politically and economically?
Well, I think the German model, in a way that has made the country prosperous over the past decades, doesn't work anymore. And there's three things that we used to have that we no longer have. Cheap energy from Russia, that's over since the full invasion in Ukraine. Protection from the United States is also over since Trump is back in the White House. And an open market in China. That's also becoming more difficult, and our products, vehicles, for example, cars are no longer selling there because we lost or we didn't go fully on electric vehicles early enough. So this all means that Germany's economy is under pressure, and we need reforms. We need to adapt to that new situation.
Mr. Merz promised a totally different approach. Do you think that he succeeded? Do you think that he has a chance to change something? He was very not polite to the government which was formed by Greens and their partners.
Well, I mean, for now, the German economy is not growing, so he is not delivering on that promise. And I think on some aspects, he's heading in the completely wrong direction. We, as in the previous government, we actually got Germany to the top of the ranking in Europe in the construction of renewable energies that we know are the cheapest on the market, that are not dependent on getting oil, be it from Russia, be it from Saudi Arabia or wherever, that we reduce our dependencies there. The new government is going more towards fossil fuels again, and it's neither delivering growth, and I think in the long term it's a disaster to head in that direction.
Also, there is an issue dealing with the United States. You said we as Europe are probably losing the security support from another side of Atlantic Ocean, but there's much more in stake.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen it this summer when Ursula von der Leyen was in Washington with Trump. He gets a good deal, we get a really bad deal. We're paying tariffs when exporting to the US, and they're not paying anything when exporting to the EU. I mean, we're clearly seeing the extortion, basically. Trump is using the strength that they give us the security so far. He's using that to extort us, and we as Europeans were weak. Well, first of all, because we cannot guarantee our security alone so far. That's something we need to change, but also because we're disunited. We need to be strong, together, united, and speak with one voice. Then we have a chance not to be bullied by Donald Trump.
A little bit more about Germany first. The situation in economy reflects on the politics. Do you agree with that? And do you think that the growth of AfD is partly a result also of economical situation in Germany?
I mean, if you look over the last 10, 12 years since the AfD existed, the economic performance in Germany has been rather strong, and the AfD has been going up in the polls. I mean, you can say that that is something that we see in pretty much every country in the European Union. And actually, so far, if you look at the polling compared to Austria, to the Netherlands, to France, still the extreme right in Germany is rather less performing than in other European countries. We see it as a general phenomenon. It probably has to do with polarization, it has to do with social media. It also has to do to some degree with anxiety, and economic issues certainly play a role in this, but it's not a single factor that makes the extreme right strong. But I would say that everything they want to do is threatening our economies. We have seen the disaster of Brexit that the extreme right in the UK has produced. If the AfD wants the same thing for Germany, exit from the European Union, exit from the euro, it would be a disaster for the central country in Europe. We have 9 EU countries around us. We're the biggest exporter in the European Union. If you take the single market, if you take the euro, Germany is kaput.
Because of the positions, there was clear barrier against AfD till Merz. But Mr. Merz, even before becoming officially a chancellor, showed that actually he maybe doesn't look at that border in a way that people who are running CDU before him were looking at that.
Well, you see it even more clearly here in the European Parliament, because the members of the European Parliament of Merz's CDU and the Conservatives here are leading basically the alliance more and more with the extreme right. They're guaranteeing majorities together, they're voting together, they're creating NGO smear campaign committees here in the parliament together with the extreme right. So it's something that I would say has been prepared at the European level for quite some time, and that we're seeing more and more in Germany. And I would say, I mean, that I don't like the extreme right is pretty clear, but I actually think that it is the death of the conservatives if they go into alliance with the extreme right. Look at Italy. The conservatives are dead, and it's now just the extreme right running the country, because Berlusconi back in the 90s opened the door of power to them. We see it in the Netherlands. We see it in France, where the conservatives are basically dead, and it's just Marine Le Pen now. So I think just out of an instinct of survival, the conservatives should not allow the extreme right to gain power. They should not run after them and use the same anti-migration hatred or use the disinformation and nonsense that the extreme right is proclaiming every day here. I think it will kill them in the end, and we don't have conservative parties anymore. And I prefer to have a European Parliament with, different political groups that are pro-European, that are pro-EU, and democratic, rather than the extreme right.
Do you think that EPP learned something from the situation just before the summer vacation, when the people with whom they were creating some kind of informal coalition actually tried to turn down Ursula von der Leyen?
I don't think so, because they continue to do that. We see it on this NGO committee, for example, where they wanted an inquiry committee. Then they said, okay, let's not do that, but we do this working group. And then they created the working group, and they are just asking for the next inquiry committee. And actually, there is now actually a second motion of censure for Ursula von der Leyen from the same extreme right that did it before the summer. These are not people that you can have a sensible government with. You cannot run the European Union with people that actually want to destroy it, that thrive on chaos, that thrive on these kind of polarizing disputes. But so far I cannot see that I've learned the lesson.
What do you think that then is a short-term aim from Mr. Weber if they persist on this strategy?
Well, he thinks that he can basically hold on to power a little longer. The problem is, with the extreme right, you can destroy things. If you want to kill certain elements of the Green Deal, for example, if you want to topple the end of the combustion engine that was adopted last mandate, if you want to go against the emissions trading scheme in Europe, these kind of things you can destroy with the extreme right. But when it comes to building Europe, if you want to adopt a budget, if you want to adopt any kind of positive law or reform, well, you cannot do that with the extreme right. And the problem that we then have is, well, he likes to play basically the two sides against each other. He says, this is what we want. Do the progressives want to do this? No, okay, then we do it with the extreme right, and the other way around. But basically, as progressives, we cannot be played all the time. We need to stand up and say, look, if you want to be constructive in Europe, you can do that with us. But if you want to break everything, we're not available for that.
In these circumstances, what do you think is the perspective of Ursula von der Leyen and her commission?
I mean, in a way, the institutional setup in Europe is very stabilizing. We cannot have snap elections for the European Parliament. So this European Parliament will sit until 2029, whatever happens. And even toppling the Commission President is very difficult. A motion of censure to succeed needs a 2/3 majority here in the House. I don't see that happening anytime soon. So in a way, there is a certain degree of stability. But of course, for her to make a positive impact, to have an agenda to pass laws, she needs majorities. And we see that becomes more and more difficult with the play of the conservatives with the extreme right.
You mentioned the pressure on NGOs. What do you think that EPP or right-wing parties want to succeed with that approach, and what strategies do they use?
Well, I think this is a very clear playbook now. We have seen that from people like Viktor Orban. We see it with the MAGA people in the United States under Trump. I mean, basically what they want is get rid of anyone that has a different opinion, right? You don't want a free press. You don't want any journalists criticizing you. You don't want independent researchers, universities. You don't want institutions like courts or central banks curtailing your power. And you don't want a free civil society that might criticize you, you know, anti-corruption groups, for example. You don't want environment NGOs that criticize your policies when they're not good for the environment. And so it's a smear campaign that they have been doing for a while, but it has really been intensifying in these last few months, where they're trying to discredit civil society associations. They're coming up with bogus stories that there is some sort of corruption, when till this day we haven't seen a single case of misuse of EU funds or corruption in this area. The European Parliament has searched, the Commission has searched, the European Court of Auditors has tried to find anything. So far nothing, but they're continuing that, and if you keep throwing dirt, something might stick at the end, right? And some people start believing, oh, there must be something there. So it's a classic smear campaign that they have been doing, and that's dangerous, because we see, you know, and we have seen it in EU member states, in Poland, in Hungary, where democracy really comes under pressure, or as in Hungary, doesn't really exist anymore. And if you destroy every kind of player that might criticize those that hold power, well, then democracy is dead at the end. We need civil society, we need free media, we need institutions to check on presidents and prime ministers, otherwise it's not a democracy.
Are you afraid of the perspective of European Union, considering situation in Hungary, in Slovakia, considering polls in France, in Germany, in many countries?
Absolutely, I'm afraid, because the success story of the European Union, that after centuries of fighting each other, you know, young people went to war every few years against a neighboring country, that we have had peace and stability, that we have a certain economic prosperity in the European Union. All this is not forever, it's not eternal. If you have the wrong political majorities, you can destroy that. We have seen it with Brexit. We see what Donald Trump is doing in the United States. That can happen here as well. I understand, you know, we live in a fast-changing world. There are insecurities. There are certainly things that aren't going in the right direction. But I strongly believe, you know, that in Europe we're stronger together. If we don't want to be, you know, if we don't want EU countries to be invaded by Vladimir Putin, we need to stay together and build up a joint defense. Alone, every single country in the EU is weak. Together, we maybe have a chance.
It sounds so logical and simple, but in reality, we see that not enough people are aware of that situation. Who can change this, the perspective? Who is the person or institution which can change the direction of Europe at this moment?
Well, I mean,
Do you see them?
we're in a democracy. Parliament can do it. The Commission President Ursula von der Leyen
but we have
can do it.
situation with President of Commission focused on balancing with not having enough support. You mentioned that actually some members of the Parliament who are declared as pro-European are actually playing some different games. So in that situation, who can change and how?
I mean, if you look at, you know, these kind of reforms of the EU that we would need, getting rid of unanimity, for example, so that we can speak with one strong voice. I mean, the extreme right has about 1/3 of the members here in the House. So there are 2/3 that are pro-European Democrats, you know, people that want to reform the Union. But many of those are afraid, you know, to talk about these things and say, look, but the extreme right is already so strong. But if we don't solve the issues, if we don't do what citizens want, and if you actually ask them, I mean, there's polling, Eurobarometer and others, just these last few weeks that say, you know, there's an overwhelming support for stronger collaboration on defense, for the European Union going even closer together. if we cannot deliver on that, then people are going to be frustrated and are going to turn away. So, the pro-EU Democrats need to be bold, need to stand together and do what's right.
Do you think that Europe now can help to the Germany, or Germany can help to the Europe?
Both, I would say. I mean, Germany can only be strong when Europe is strong, and Europe can only really be strong when Germany is strong. So both are right.
Mr. Freund, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.